How do you get the strength to keep going after the trauma you've suffered as a child?
I have this strong desire coming from inside me, very deep inside, to go out and reach as many people as I can, to let them know that it wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault that an adult or a very bad person hurt them when they were little. And I have this strong desire to go out and say, it's never a child's fault. Never a child's fault. It doesn't matter if that child is running around, or if that child is not so smart, or if that child just doesn't comprehend certain things. It's never a child's fault. And I get my desire to go out and my strength to go out and plead with people that are in charge of raising children to keep an eye out for signs to keep the children safe. If a child is sad or too quiet or falling asleep in class, in school, or if a child is pleading with an adult not to go somewhere, you need to pay attention and say, this child is in distress. We need to find out why this child doesn't want to go somewhere. Just like the time that I pleaded with my mother not to make me go to music lessons. And my mother told me I had to go. I was very distracted all the time, very wanting to learn everything, never sat down for long periods of time like my sister did. We have totally different personalities. And my mother and my father thought it was wonderful for me to learn to play an instrument. And when I began to go to music lessons at the local church, with the local priest being the person in charge, he began to molest me at the age of 9. And I told my mother that I didn't want to go. She said I had to go. And then when the abuse got to be more and more aggressive, I cried and I cried and I cried to my mother. And I told my mother I didn't want to go. And she said, you have to go. You're not gonna just stay home all summer or after school, and we want you to learn. That's where I get my strength from. A strong desire to keep children safe. And also bring awareness to adults that are still hurting, that they too can recover from the sadness and from the trauma they may have experienced as children.
What are the tools you use to overcome depression, anxiety, and sadness?
I began with positive reading, positive thinking, a lot of the I am videos on YouTube. I am wonderful, I am worthy, I am enough. I read the book The Secret. I learned to manifest and stay positive, and now I create an imaginary bubble around me where I don't allow anything but positivity and love. Everything else stays outside the bubble, and anyone who is positive and loving is accepted in, and that's how I maintain my positive attitude, and those are my tools.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to my world. My name is Regina LaFrance, and I am the author of this new book called Shayla, now available on Amazon. From the horrific trauma that I suffered at the hands of a pedophile to redemption.
That's good. Are you good?
Yes, I changed it up. So this book reads like a movie. It's the kind of story that should never had happened to a young girl. My book, Shayla, is a cautionary tale for protecting our children and what can happen to them when we don't hear their voices crying out for help. This also marks the lead up to my movement called Lady.
Why did you have to plead with your mother not to go to music lessons?
I pleaded with my mother not to make me go to music lessons because I was being molested. I was being sexually assaulted and I was in fear of my life, and I was afraid to go because I knew the priest that was in charge of teaching me how to play an instrument was molesting me, and it was really scary and at times extremely painful, the things that he did to me. And now I want to create awareness. So if you are in charge of raising a child and the child pleads with you not to make the child go to a certain place, especially if it's a place that they used to like going and now they don't, you need to pay attention. A child may not tell you why, but a child will always show signs of being in distress.
What signs should we look for when a child is in distress?
A child may cry and tell you that they don't want to go somewhere. And when you ask them why, they don't say anything. That's when you really need to pay attention, especially if that child is crying and telling you they don't want to go. And those are the times where you need to drop everything you're doing and look around and find out why your child is pleading with you not to go. Like the young girl that told my client that she didn't want to go to summer camp that year, and my client told me that she was super upset that her daughter didn't want to go and she didn't know what to do. Those were the things that I am now bringing forward to create awareness, to keep children safe.
What happened that night at the cemetery?
That night at the cemetery, I was the victim of a sexual assault, which resulted in a pregnancy, and a woman and the priest's mother performed an abortion on me on the kitchen table. That night, the priest drove me to the cemetery, ordered me to dig a hole and squat over that hole and abort into the hole. Then after that, he told me to cover the hole and put the shovel away. While I was putting the shovel away, I fell and I cut myself right here. And I had a big cut right here on my lip, and I was crying a lot. And he came over and slapped me and beat me and told me to get up and put the shovel away. And then once I did that, he drove me back to his mother's house, and she cared for me.
What do you do when you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like getting out of bed?
I do a big stretch, and I tell myself that I have to get up because I have wonderful things to do and that I'm grateful for the things that I have. And I want to go make a difference, and I want to go live my journey, which is to create awareness to keep children safe.
Why did you hate your face?
For so many years, I hated my face because of the scar that I have here. And that scar was a result of a fall in the cemetery the night that the priest made me abort into a hole that I had dug myself. And for so many years, through my teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s, I hated my face because every time I saw the scar, I remember that night. And I remember the times he told me I was ugly and stupid.
What would you tell the priest today if you saw him?
Back a few years before he died, I went home to visit my parents, and I saw him one time, and I just kept on walking. I didn't look to his direction or said anything. So today, I probably would do the same. I dealt with that in 2017 when I decided that he was no longer going to rent space in my brain and he was no longer going to be a burden in my life. I let him go, not for him, but for me. I have nothing to say to him.
Why did you write your book after all these years?
After all these years, I realized that I have the power to heal, and I have the power to go out and tell the world that children need to be safe. And I began to write this book with the intent to create awareness to keep children safe, But in the process of writing my book, I discovered my own healing. So now I have two missions. One, to create awareness to keep children safe. And two, equally as important, to let victims of abuse know that they too can heal and move forward and live their journey from a happy, wonderful place in their hearts.
What is your message to those that are still hurting from childhood and sexual trauma?
The first thing I want to say is that it wasn't your fault. It's never a child's fault. But before you hear me, you have to dig down deep inside of your heart and your soul and begin to love who you are and who you were intended to be before you were hurt as a child.
Who do you see in the mirror now versus back then?
I see a happy, healthy, carefree, very humble and loving woman that wants to do gardening, wants to cook, wants to create friendships, and wants to go out and live her life the way that she did when she was 6, 7, and 8 years old, running around on the farm with her father. Before, I used to see a ugly, hurt, depressed woman that was not worthy of love and felt badly for herself.
How did this trauma affect your last relationships with men and your current marriage?
In the past, I used to think that sexual relationships were a way of receiving love, but they never worked. It was never genuine, was never kind. I didn't know how to love, and I certainly didn't know how to feel loved. My marriage now is wonderful because I now understand the power of love. And I now understand that in the past, love was always around me, but I just didn't recognize it. My marriage is now 100% versus in the past, me always being defensive and always running if something didn't go my way. Now I say what I mean and I mean what I say. Thinking that, oh, if I have sex with this person, they're gonna love me. Or I would like to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and if I give of myself sexually, that's the only way that I'll receive love. And in reality, the other person is looking for a partner that has self-respect and self-love. You can have the sexual relationship after the self-respect and everything else like that been established. So for me, in the past, I always thought that the only way I was going to have a boyfriend or a relationship would be if I did that. A lot of times I didn't want to do that, so the relationship never worked. But not necessarily because of that. It didn't work because I didn't love myself. I didn't have boundaries. I didn't have self-worth. So people saw that in me and things just didn't work out. Now it's just so much different because I feel love. I feel love for self. When I look in the mirror, I like who I am. I actually enjoy being who I am. As in the past, I thought that long, beautiful hair or being skinny or being fit or driving a nice car was all I needed, but it wasn't. It wasn't until I took a deep look inside and discovered that my inner child was still hurting. That's when I did the work. I went inside my soul and I began to nurture my little girl inside. And that's when I discovered love. And now I'm a free spirit person like I was when I was 6 and 7 years old.
What are your thoughts on abuse?
Abuse is trauma that one suffers. So in my case, is sexual abuse that I was traumatized by, but speaking with people and learning about what people are suffering from, in my opinion, Abuse can be physical, emotional, and also abandonment is a form of abuse. A lot of times people tell me, oh, I never really was abused like you. I never been beaten by my parents or anything, but my parents were alcoholics and we went to bed hungry every night because my parents were drunk every night, fighting with each other, and we were in the room scared that they would fight some more. So we didn't want to cause any problems by asking them that we were hungry. And to me, that's a huge form of abuse. All these children that suffer abuse when they're little, or even as young adults, they are going to grow up with a mentality like I had, that they're less than. So when you're an adult and you had trauma happen in your life, you have to start on the bottom. And starting in the bottom means you have to love yourself more than anything else. You have to have respect for yourself before you can start in a relationship with someone and expect those things from them.
So what is the Ladybug movement?
The Ladybug movement is me having a strong desire to create awareness to keep children safe. Ladybug was the nickname that my father had for me when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I was very small, very dark, and he called me Ladybug because I was so cute. So I want to create awareness. I want to keep our precious children safe from predators.
What is the Let's Move Mountains Together movement?
I have done a tremendous amount of work to heal myself and realized that my inner child was still hurting for so many years. So I did all the work that I needed to do to heal my own inner child. And now I want to bring forward information for you. If you are an adult and you're still hurting from trauma you experienced when you were a child or a young adult, we can move mountains. We can learn together that what happened to us was sad and very unfortunate, but we can heal from it, and we can heal together because it wasn't your fault.
What tools do you have to handle a narcissist?
I have, believe it or not, a very small toolbox for the narcissistic personality, and I handle a narcissistic personality with 3 things. The first one is I learned and practiced this: a narcissist is never wrong. Second, if you engage in an argument or a dispute with a narcissist, you will lose. And the third thing, this is all you need to remember: grab a large bowl of Jell-O, a nail and a hammer, go out to the backyard and try to nail that Jell-O to a tree. You can't do it. Do not give the narcissistic flame to their fuel. They are looking to engage, they are looking to ignite. They need that high of igniting with you. You must not fall for their trap. And if you don't engage, they're powerless. They are only powerful when you engage. A narcissist can be anyone. It's a negative force in your life. It could be your parent, it could be an older sibling, it could be your neighbor, it could be your manager, your supervisor, it could be your spouse or your partner. Just be very aware. That person with a narcissistic personality is a hurt individual that needs to put you down so they feel better about themselves. They have a series of troubles that they need to handle, but unfortunately, they don't know that. All they know is that they are never wrong. That's all they know. It's up to you to protect yourself, and it's up to you to not engage. Remember, nailing Jell-O to a tree, you cannot do it. Do not engage, do not fuel them up, and you're going to be just fine.